Tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room and you won't think twice about it. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch didn't exist. When the sun set, the world went dark, and what your ancestors did inside that darkness, what they ate, how they spoke, who they became, is one of the strangest and most revealing stories in all of human history. You think of night as a time for sleep. Your phone tells you to wind down. Your doctor says get 8 hours. Your alarm is set for morning. But here is the problem with that assumption. The 8-hour block of uninterrupted sleep you think of as normal. It was invented, not by biology, by artificial light, before electricity, before candles were common, before fire was something you could guarantee. Night was not a void you slept through, it was a world you lived in, and your ancestors were wide awake in it. Historian A. Roger E. Kirch spent over 2 decades researching the nighttime habits of pre-industrial humans. What he found changed everything historians thought they knew about sleep. In his landmark 2005 book, he documented what he called segmented sleep. Your ancestors didn't sleep in one long stretch, they slept in 2. The first sleep began shortly after sunset and lasted 3 to 5 hours. Then they woke up. Not because something startled them, not because they were sick. They woke up because that was natural, that was how the human body was designed. And then came the hour in between. Historians call it the watch, or the watching hour. It lasted anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. And in that quiet darkness, in the space between first sleep and second sleep, ancient humans did something extraordinary. They talked, they prayed, they had sex, they checked on their animals, they lay still and thought through the problems of their lives. Medieval doctors recommended this hour as the best time for conception. Scholars used it for deep reflection. Some people believe the thoughts that came during the watch were more honest than any thought they had during the day. Think about that. There was an entire psychological state that modern humans have never experienced. An hour of wakeful darkness between 2 sleeps, so quiet and so still that it was considered sacred by the people who lived it. And then the second sleep would begin, lighter than the first, closer to the surface of consciousness, and just before dawn they would wake again, not groggy, not reaching for caffeine, ready. Anthropologist Carol Worthman at Emory University has studied sleep patterns across non-industrialized societies that still exist today, communities in the Amazon, in sub-Saharan Africa, in remote parts of Southeast Asia. Her research consistently finds that where artificial light has not penetrated, segmented sleep returns. The body seeks it, the brain prefers it. What we call insomnia, that frustrating middle-of-the-night wakefulness, may not be a disorder at all. It may be your ancient biology surfacing through the veneer of modern life. But there is more to the nighttime world of ancient humans than sleep. Fire changed everything, and not just because it provided warmth or cooked food. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying the Jew Han San people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the oldest continuous cultures on Earth. She recorded their conversations by day and by night and compared them. During the day, the talk was practical. Who was going hunting, where the water was, who owed what to whom. But at night, gathered around the fire as darkness pressed in from every side, the conversations transformed entirely. At night they told stories, not just stories for entertainment, stories about distant ancestors, stories that explained why the world worked the way it did, stories that carried the moral code of the community, wrapped in metaphor and character so that even children could absorb it without realizing they were being taught. Wiesner called nighttime fire talk the engine of cultural transmission. It was the original school, the original church, the original book. Your ability to imagine worlds that don't exist, to think abstractly, to hold a complex moral framework, to picture what a stranger might be feeling, may have developed in part around fire, in darkness, listening to stories told by people who had lived twice as long as you and knew things you needed to know. And consider what the night did to the body of an ancient human. As the light faded, the brain triggered a cascade of hormones. Melatonin rose slowly. Cortisol, the stress hormone, began to drop. Body temperature fell. The nervous system eased from sympathetic dominance, that high-alert hunting mode, into parasympathetic recovery. Ancient humans didn't need to practice relaxation. The sunset did it for them automatically, every single night. Now think about your nervous system at 10 p.m. You are staring at a screen emitting blue light, the same frequency as midday sun. Your brain reads it as noon. Melatonin is suppressed. Cortisol stays elevated. Your body believes, on a cellular level, that you are standing in the middle of the day even as the clock tells you it is nearly midnight. And then you wonder why sleep is difficult, and then you wonder why you wake at 3 a.m. and cannot return to sleep. That is not insomnia. That is ancient biology colliding with artificial light. Ancient humans also used the night for something that modern life has almost completely stripped away. They used it for ceremony. Across virtually every pre-industrial culture, darkness was the time for ritual. Not because people were superstitious, though they certainly held beliefs we would call that today, but because darkness does something to human perception. It narrows your world. It forces your attention inward. It removes the visual noise of the physical environment and leaves you alone with sound, with sensation, with other people gathered close. Researcher David Lewis Williams, a cognitive archaeologist at the University of Witwatersrand, studied the cave paintings of ancient humans, those extraordinary images found in the deep recesses of caves in France, Spain, and South Africa, painted up to 40,000 years ago. He noticed something that other researchers had overlooked. The most significant paintings were not near the cave entrance where light was plentiful. They were deep inside the cave, in passages so narrow and dark that entering them with a small flame would have been a profound sensory experience. He proposed that ancient humans entered those spaces specifically to reach altered states, the kind of visual and auditory experiences that come from isolation, darkness, and the flickering of a single flame, and that the paintings were records of what they saw in those states. Your ancestors weren't just surviving the night, they were mining it. They were using the darkness as a tool for understanding things that daylight could not reveal. And yet, here is what makes this story deeply personal to you. Those ancient responses are still inside your body. Every cell that triggers goosebumps when you hear something in the dark. Every instinct that makes a bonfire feel different from a light bulb even though both produce flame. Every quiet 3 a.m. thought that feels more honest than anything you manage to think during the busy hours of your day. That is not random. That is not anxiety. That is your ancient brain recognizing an environment it was built for and trying, despite everything, to respond the way it was designed. The watch is still in you. The fire is still in you. The storytelling brain that came alive when the sun went down, that too is still in you. Tonight, when the sun goes down, you are going to flip a switch. Light will flood the room. And somewhere underneath that light, underneath the screen and the algorithm and the schedule, an ancient version of you will wait quietly in the dark, the way it always has, for the stories to begin.